Welcome to So You Think Your Car is Fast, where we dive into the world of high-end, fast cars and explore what it truly means to have a fast car. From the latest in supercar technology to the mechanics that make these machines go, we'll separate fact from fiction and uncover the misconceptions about speed and power that exist in the minds of the general public. Join us as we put the pedal to the metal and discover what it takes to have a car that truly lives up to the title of fast.
What's up, fellas?
What's going on?
Trying to figure out life.
Let me know when you got that figured out.
Never gonna happen. All right. So, what exciting things happened this weekend that we can talk about?
There was the dual clutch cup race. I don't remember what it's called.
DCT.
Hey, I don't even know a lot about that. Where do they do that?
It's in Florida.
It's in Bradenton.
And I guess neither one of you could compete since you don't have a DCT.
Why were you not there, Taylor?
No, we also don't run
excuses. Reasons are excuses.
This is a really good example of knowing when your car is not fast, because we do not run sixes in the quarter mile.
No. Plus, I only have a single clutch.
I have a triple clutch, so that might put me in a different.
I do have a triple clutch. Yeah, forgot about that.
I have 10.
So DCT World Cup, lots of fast cars, mainly Lambos and R8s and GTRs. Did you see Amie Palo run half the track on the back wheels? That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know how Tony does it, because I couldn't put my wife in a car that only drove down the track on two wheels.
No.
He must not love her.
Badass.
Yeah, my wife doesn't like it when I punch it in my truck. I don't think we're not drag racing.
Well, I did see that Gidi took 3 years off and comes back with the ETS car and breaks his own record and wins the event.
Yeah, but didn't something happen like in the middle of the event for him?
The second launch, broke some suspension parts and some rear suspension parts, and the car bounced 3 times and went backwards and almost hit the wall, and he saved it, and then comes back. I think they built the car overnight and he went back out and won the event.
I saw some of those pictures floating around on social media where his car's up and there's like 3 or 4 dudes hanging out of the bottom of it. It's a good crew.
Yeah, talk about track support for that guy.
Yeah,
good for him.
Yeah. Did the one thing that I saw that stuck in my memory was not a great thing, but was the there was a crash, right, where the car all of a sudden. I mean, I don't really understand what happens in that scenario, but from the starting line video that I saw, cars going down the track, and then just makes a 90-degree left-hand turn and shoots into the wall.
Yeah, but it was way down the track already.
It was after the finish.
Is that like a tire going down or something?
Or when they hit the brakes too hard, or I don't know.
It could be a combo of both, but I did not see a chute. I don't even know if the car had a chute. So, the debate is, if he would have had a chute, would that have straightened him out? Blah, blah, blah. I don't think he had time to think about.
I'm curious what would happen in a scenario on an airstrip, because there wouldn't be anything to crash into. Right? You just keep going, but at that speed, I don't know that you really want to be off in the grass going sideways either. So,
right.
Interesting topic of conversation, but that wasn't even the strangest part.
No.
No, I remember when Todd sent the link to me and he said, "Keep watching, it gets worse." And I'm
thinking, how can it get any worse? Like the helicopter landing to take him to the hospital crashes? Like, what happens?
I was not prepared.
No, the gator, right, that they were taking out to get to the far end of the track, the guy slid it sideways between the lanes, and when it caught on the VHT, the track prep to make it sticky at the starting line, he rolled that thing over.
Yeah, toppled right over, man.
And it looked really bad. I mean, I would laugh, and I kind of am, because it was ridiculous. but it looked like the guy actually hurt himself
No,
because
I think I read that he did, that they ended up taking him to the hospital or something, that his arm got caught under it. I
Hmm.
mean,
yeah,
of course,
it's got to be something like that. I mean, that's just yeah. Well,
yeah, it's
people
unfortunate.
get excited and do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do, and he was trying to be heroic and race down there and help the guy
Sure.
and
Yeah.
end up rolling it. So,
Yeah.
all right.
See, I mean,
Two
it looks
R8.
like it's going great right now.
Yeah. Cross
They
the
crossed the
trap.
finish even.
Right
Mhm.
there.
Oh,
Boom.
and then
Boom.
this is a clearer video of the first one I saw, so
Yeah.
But
So
wait, there's
right
more.
here, he just makes a serious left-hand turn.
yeah. Oh, and then there's that.
Right there. See how the car angles
Yeah,
right there?
I don't know, maybe something broke. I don't
Yeah, I have no idea how that. Yeah, something broke. Tire completely failed, and this, I guess it would mean it would be the front left tire or the rear left tire that probably the front left that
I mean,
that went.
that's a pretty impressive sharp turn that it made there, so
I've seen cars do that on runways before when there's a little bit sketchiness and traction and somebody hits the brakes really hard, they do tend to just go around like that. So, I mean, I guess that could be what it is. That's
But
why I
that
want a parachute for my car, because if you start going around, pull that chute and it'll straighten you back out. But yeah, here's
Yeah.
here's the rest of it. This is the crazy part.
82 miles an hour left side, 781 on the right side, and a lot of smoke.
yeah, and then
Whoops.
that's just out of nowhere, man.
A jack stand goes flying. He's got his arm pinned, I bet.
Yeah, that's a
Uh, mm. He just hit that track prep.
yeah,
And
didn't
just
quite count on how sticky it was.
mhm.
Yeah, and you can see that poor guy, he's down. He's not getting back up. So
Right.
I hope he's okay. I think I heard the same thing you heard, Taylor, that he went to the hospital, but beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Well, the driver of the R8 was fine. You know? You don't
Yeah, that's
normally
the thing. Nobody was talking about that either.
Yeah.
I
Besides
you
probably a hurt wallet.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't really tell. The thing I'm always afraid of in that instance is, like, it's one thing if the car goes down, loses it, hits the wall, but it's another thing if the car goes down, loses it, and hits the other car too,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
'cause that's even worse.
yeah.
So, I mean, maybe you're lucky if it's just you that goes in, but yeah, that was crazy.
Fifth picture from the left, I recognize that turbo.
What's that, Taylor?
I mean, that's a swirly twirly gumdrop that's
Mm.
ready.
That's a giant. So that's one of the two that hang off the back of your car?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What is it?
It's a turbo.
Yeah, and it's how big is it? What kind of
I
power
believe
does it
I
make?
mean,
it's a
it's a little
Zona
bit bigger
rotor.
than a monster can.
It's bigger than a monster.
Yeah, it's a Zona rotor turbo and an X4C compressor cover is what I
Yeah,
see.
that's what makes it look so big, man. It's the crazy thing is I showed that picture to my wife. She goes, "Oh, it's so tiny," and I was like, "Wait, what?"
But not in my world. That's a big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I
It's pretty
started trying
large.
to then I texted my buddy that has some OEM VTG turbos off of his 9972, and I was like, "Hey, could you do me a favor and snap a picture of your stock turbos next to a monster can so I can compare the two?"
And
No.
did you
He
get it?
didn't do it. I mean, I can't like he's like, "Well, I got them in my garage." I was like, "Well, just, sometime." But I did have a picture of some BMW turbos from an N54 sitting next to a regular size soda can, and those look like little tiny dwarfs compared to that one. So, little size comparison.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good sized turbo.
Yeah.
And you went from the X3C cover on your turbo to the X4C cover on your
Yeah.
turbo.
Yep. Don't know what that's gonna do to the seat of the pants dyno, but
Yeah, I don't know that we'll really be able to tell. But what is good for that is that the essentially the inlet of the compressor is larger, right? So it's effectively exposing like a larger, uh, you know, opening for the air filter to fit over, so it can breathe better. And you've got such a large compressor wheel in there. Apparently, we're not disclosing which one. Uh,
I don't
but
know. I've always advertised everything about it, and then it seems like when I did these turbos, somebody said to me, they're like, "Oh, don't say anything," and I was like, "Oh, okay." So then I've had people ask. I'll be like, "Well, yeah, it's a Zona turbo."
yeah, I mean it's a Zona turbo. It uses the big compressor cover. I guess that's all we're gonna tell everybody for now.
I guess. I guess.
We're being like that, huh?
Yeah. Um, so it'll flow a little bit better in there, and that's the thing that we have a lot of trouble with in the 911s because the engine's in the back. We talked about it before. It helps that the engine's behind the rear wheels, so puts a lot of weight on the back. So once we get going, we get really good traction. And of course, with the turbo engine, it kind of power comes in gradually over a certain maybe a second or so as the turbos are coming up. It's not like a big V8 normally aspirated engine where there's a big shock of torque which can break the wheels loose. So comes in nice and smooth, car squats, goes. And but because the engines are in the back, we have a lot of trouble with getting air into them. It's not like we can, like the Corvette guys, they just poke the turbos right out of the hood of the car, and boom, they've got
Mhm.
this nice big, relatively clean because it's going over the hood, source of air. And in our case, we've got turbos that are hanging basically right behind the rear tires where it wants to kick up all the dirt and dust and everything else. So we have to run air filters, and we have to run them on the bottom of the car where there's, essentially a low pressure area because we don't want air coming under the car at 200 miles an hour. We want it going over the car to hold us down. So,
As you're saying all this, I'm only absorbing a little bit of it because I'm thinking, should I have gotten bigger air filters too?
as big of an air filter as you
No,
can
I know, but
physically fit is the answer.
I know, but you're saying the inlet on the X4C it is significantly larger than the X3C, so my filters aren't going to fit.
Oh, yeah, that could be. We just
Mm,
figured that out now, didn't we?
You're spending
yeah.
more money.
Okay, well,
I don't think they're gonna run the filters on the dyno, so I think you're safe.
I mean, I think I'm
Although
kind of stuck filters on the turbos for now. But
yeah,
even so, I still need shoot. I don't know. I guess we'll ask Trey or Wayne or Jamo or somebody.
yeah, we need to come up with a better solution to that, then if you look at the way the turbos are mounted in a 992 911 turbo, they changed everything, and instead of the, side scoops, the rather iconic side scoops feeding intercooler air, that's actually where turbocharger air comes in. And
Mm.
I thought about doing that with my car, but I was running air-to-air intercoolers at the time, and basically you'd have to go ahead and build headers, intercoolers, exhaust, everything all together in one shot
But
to
yours is
try.
kind of like that now, though, right? Because your filters are on top of your intercoolers.
Yes, that is true, but
I mean, it's not a forced air situation, but
yeah, I mean, if I had the turbos mounted kind of in the factory intercooler location, I'd probably be able to run them. At least I'd try to run them without filters.
mm,
But there's some interesting aero effects that happen because if we look at our data logs with the air intercoolers, like all three of our cars, roughly around 150 miles an hour, just intake temps went from being relatively nice to going north of 200 Fahrenheit as you got over 200 miles an hour. And that always kind of meant one of two things: either the intercooler wasn't flowing anymore because air was bypassing around the car instead of going in the intercooler inlet, or it was heat soaked, and no amount of air was going to help it cool down anymore. It needed to, it was saying uncle basically. And I don't know that we ever really answered that question, but we went to air to water intercoolers. You and I did, unlike Todd, who had them all along. And that dropped our intake temps, dramatically, kind of got rid of that problem. But I think you probably could get away with running intercoolers in the rear of the car, using the air coming down over the top of the car, and then put the turbos in the sides. I'd like to try it. I just $25,000 roughly to do it doesn't sound appealing on a hunch.
Talking about aim, I'm going to see if I can pull this up.
I get fixated on something, and now I'm texting Trey.
So talking about aim in their 992, record run 8.7. Same ECU and TCU.
Man,
as yesterday.
those 992s are something else.
Let's watch this.
Yeah, look at that 60 foot, 1.42 seconds.
I mean, the 0 to 60 people are going to be impressed with that.
Yeah, well, this car seems to be doing it all, right? It's 60 footing
it really does.
Which means it's going through the first 60 feet. I mean, 1.4, that's, yeah.
I was excited to see, you guys know Dave, right? Dave Briggs, the 8-second daily driver. I was excited to see what his car was going to do because I like him. He just seems like such a nice guy. And I mean, he was congratulatory to me one time at one of the shift sectors. And, I think he holds the 991 record, doesn't he?
I think he does. Yeah.
I think he's running an 8.2.
Yeah, I was anxious to see what his was going to do, but he had some transmission woes.
Well, his car makes 1,500 horsepower is what they advertise.
He did tell me, because I was messaging him, right? Like I like to watch his car because he's pushing the PDK limits. And so I asked him, and he said, well, he said, I've never broken the transmission roll racing or half mile, but from a dig, that's where he sees it. And I think he shredded some gears this time.
Yeah.
But he did say, I mean, that was after I don't know, I can't remember the number. He said after 50 or 100 dig shots or hole shots on that car. So it's the PDK still holds up well.
I just pulled up his post. He ran an 8.2 at 167, 1,360 foot. That car's moving, and it's all about the transmission too. That's amazing. Yeah, Dave Briggs, good guy, built by AIM. Nice.
I have a picture of Dave's gears here, actually.
Trey just responded to me already. I'm such an idiot. He's like, the air filters are already on there, dude. Oh, yeah. So, there you go.
Yeah, that's the gear.
Yeah.
And you can see it's 35-25. I'm not sure what gear that is. I started to Google it to try to figure it out, and I was like, it's a broken gear, but
well, it's probably 3.
If you go on to Dodson Motorsports website, the PDK guys, in fine print on their Porsche catalog, they say 991 gears coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long it has said that, though.
Those gears will probably work in your trans too. The interesting thing, though, is that they're already very, very strong. I mean, they're stronger than 997 gears, which are stronger than 996 gears. Although Todd, of course, has a 996 transmission because of the GT cars. That's what they came with, and has super strong gear, super strong build rater gear set in it already. But these things don't break unless you're drag racing them. If you're runway racing them or roll racing them, they really don't break. So at least we haven't seen it. I mean, I'm sure there's a limit somewhere, but
I mean, someday I would like to make a quarter-mile pass, right? But I don't know.
I've been saying that for years, and the pucker factor is, if anything goes wrong,
I guess as long as I don't use real slicks, then my tire's the weakest point.
Well, actually, that makes sense, but that's actually not what you want to do. A radial tire will shock the driveline significantly more. I know this from my Mitsubishi racing days because I broke every all-wheel drive part there is known to man. What you
Yeah,
want
but you can
are,
also buy every one of those parts in AutoZone.
well,
That might be an exaggeration, but
I literally went to a junkyard called Al's Atomic Pick You Part,
okay,
and it was in a really bad part of Dallas.
that's where they are.
And no, I mean, it was like really bad. It was so bad that I was scared to go there. I bought a 4-foot long breaker bar just to carry around with me because I figured that people wouldn't, mess with me if I had a giant stick. And we used to pull transfer cases and axles and everything out of DSMs. And I'd pay $75 for a transfer case, and that was still like, it was hard for me to afford doing all of that back then. It was, every pass you might break $200-300 worth of parts. So it was, but yeah, with the tires, a radial tire, there's no give in the sidewall, so it shocks the driveline really hard. But with a bias ply tire, like a full slick, you'll know at the end, the first time you drive the car, you'll be like, oh, I get it now, because literally it feels like you're driving on sponges compared to tires, and everything's just really nice and smooth, and the car just kind of jiggles down the track. There's not a lot of, like, if you get tire shake kind of stuff where wheel hop where it's spinning or whatever, it's way easier on the equipment. So you actually would want, if you were going to do it for real and go for like a big number and run it hard, you'd probably be better off putting slicks on it.
Okay.
The only problem with that is the look. I don't like the look, of the big slick on the P car.
I don't even know what I could fit because I got 19-inch wheels and the carbon brakes. So I don't.
You'd have to go down. You'd have to go to like a 15 or 16.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't go that low. But even I think you can get some 18-inch slicks, some sizes. But even I don't know if I can fit 18-inch wheels even with
You'd
those
need
big brakes.
I mean, I used to run 13-inch wheels, and we put brakes from a 1991 Plymouth Laser because it just happened to be the same brakes, single piston calipers, and that would stop the car once. That was it.
Yeah,
Like,
this isn't encouraging information. It's not like I'm like, oh yeah, now after talking to these guys, I want to go out and do it for sure.
well, we had
Seems
parachutes,
like a
right?
pain now.
Well, none of us are doing any drag racing, so we're all on. I mean, I'm on a. Are we on different tires? I'm on the Nitto 555R2 rears.
Yeah, I would
Because I'm
like to
rear-wheel
be on the
drive.
Nitto, but I have to have a matching front and
Mm.
rear tire with all-wheel drive, so that dramatically reduces the options.
Does that limit you to the 888R?
I could do a 888R. I could do a couple of other tires, but there's a very, very small number. Now, of course, maybe there's nothing stopping you from running a Nitto drag radial on the rear, and then like a Nitto 450 or something like that on the front. That's more of a street tire, because you're not really putting that much torque down in the front.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wary of that. I ran some Michelin Pilot Sports in the rear, and some something else. I can't remember what it was in the front. And they were all street tires. They weren't race tires, but it was just because I couldn't find the Michelins to buy for the front to match it. And the whole car was just, I mean, it was scary dangerous. Even at 500-600 wheel horsepower, it would move around 2 lanes anytime you stepped on the gas. So
Mm-hmm.
I ran mismatched front rear tires. I ran the I guess it was the R888Rs on the rear, and then the front I had Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s. And I never experienced any, although this was just when my car was, a full bolt on and meth. So I didn't experience any of that stuff. But I'll tell you what, the way that Steve has my car set up now, I can't even it is so confidence inspiring when I make a half-mile pass. It's unreal.
yeah,
So
well,
I
Steve
don't
had
know if
some
tires
Steve
have a
magic.
lot there, but it's I mean, it feels good.
We are not running stock. I mean, we are running a lot of stock suspension components in the cars, but we are not running stock suspension geometry by any stretch of the imagination. Steve has gone and set our cars up so that when they squat, like on a typical track car, you've got quite a bit of camber, so that you get more bite out of the tires. But like when our cars squat under acceleration, the tires are almost perfectly vertical. So like flat across the bottom. So there's a lot of things that he does. In fact, I mean, I'm sure he'd tell us if we asked, but Steve's the kind of guy that you can really rely on 100% of the time. When
Well,
he says he's going to do something.
that's the great thing about Steve. In the past, because I've done all this work myself, I'm always kind of over the mechanic's shoulder and like double and triple checking that they're doing what I. But Steve, I'm just like, hey, just do your thing, man. Let me know when it's ready to be picked up.
Yeah, because realistically, us meddling in it is just going to slow him down. I do like to ask generalized questions. So, I mean, like, I know enough to, say what I just did, but, what the exact specifications are, that's just something we don't have to worry about with Steve. We don't.
Yeah. Shout out, Steve. Steve Ott. Shout out.
Yeah, I found Steve originally differently than Todd did. He was asking questions about a very strange oil pump problem that he had on one of the Porsche forums, and I read his question, and I was like, wow, that is the strangest thing I have ever heard in my life. And I don't remember too many details about it because this was like 6-7 years ago, but I remember reading it and thinking, wow, this guy really knows what he's doing. Like this is really well written, which is rare on internet car forums. Let's be honest. A lot of the posting on there is, hey bro, what's up?
Mhm.
And he got a lot of answers, and it was a forehead slapping moment. And you're like, yeah, these answers, yeah, you guys,
I know.
put the keyboard down.
Yeah.
And then later there was another post from Steve, and he was updating everybody as to he had figured out what the problem was, and he told everybody to help anybody else who might run into such a problem. And I was like, wow, not only is he really good and he can spell and punctuate, which I mean, if I have this theory that if you want to know who's full of crap on the internet, if what you're reading isn't spelled correctly, they probably are full of crap.
That makes me
And
kind of want to go check my posts.
yeah. Well, I had to go install the Grammarly extension for my browser to save me from that. Yeah. But then he came back and told everybody about it later. And so like that follow up, I was just like, wow, this guy I don't know, stood out to me because you don't see that very often. And then when his name got floated, when my engine was getting put back together as a place to go, I was like, yeah, you know what? I know who that guy is. I'm going to call that guy. And it was the best decision I ever made.
Well, that's how I found him too. Is through not two, I guess, through you. I mean, yeah, that was a recommendation I got from you.
Yeah, and Todd was already there.
Yeah.
My story, Steve, when I first saw him, I thought he was the coolest cat because at the time he was working for Driver Source, which he still is. And of course, at Driver Source, there's a plethora of cool cars. And he literally had his choice of anything he wanted to drive. He would drive. And so he was in a blue 996 GT2, which happened to be Jerry Seinfeld's at one point. So he's in that car, and we're going to Hennessy's to do a 6130 event that Peter Block had put on. And he and Ben Moores were out there, and Ben was in the silver car. I was in my gray tip, and Steve was in this blue car, and we stopped, and we would cruise out to the track on I-10, get to the track, and he was just a real. First of all, he's a really great driver, and he was getting better times out of a stock GT2 than I was out of a modified tip. And so I had my car was already modified by Tommy Bond, good old Autobahn Motorsports, the Super King, right?
Yeah, the Super guys. Yeah.
So Tommy had done my turbos, in a tune in a basic, setup for the tip. and ran that for a while. But yeah, met Steve, and then not long after that, he was doing all the work on the Porsche, because he was more of a Porsche guy than Tommy was. Tommy's a fantastic, tech, and he's a genius in the super world, and he knows his stuff. But yeah, that was my run-in with Steve, and then man, that was probably 14 years ago.
Well, I was telling Amber from Force Performance about Steve, and she went back into her photo archive and found a photo of him. Speaking of him driving cool cars, he was driving. Was it a Bugatti that he was driving?
Yeah, is that the picture when
that
he
was my
he looked
photo.
like a baby?
Yeah.
No, that was the photo I posted. He and Paulie Walnuts were talking, but yeah, he was in the EB110,
Paulie,
right? Blue one.
What's Paulie? Have you heard from Paulie in the last?
He's kind of faded off. He still has the yellow GT2, I'm sure, but he's slowed down quite a bit.
I met up with him. Well, this is a long time ago when I had my 996, when I was getting ready to do a clutch job, and I was trying to decide if I was going to do the GT2 hydraulic conversion or not. And I happened to be in Houston that weekend, and he's like, "Hey, just come by my house, and I'll let you, see what the pedal feels like." So I went and met him, and
oh wow, good guy. Yeah, he's a really good guy too. I mean, everybody that we've grown up in Porsches has been really great, and he still has that car too.
The Porsche community is one of my favorite communities. I mean, I've had a lot of different cars, and I'm in some other communities and stuff, but I don't know. Ironically, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. The Porsche guys seem like the most down to earth, cool guys than a lot of other groups that are, I don't know, trying to prove something.
Probably definitely better than the Viper guys, right?
I don't know. I don't know about the Viper guys. I hear about them.
Well,
yes, they talk a lot. We know that.
That being okay, so speaking of reader listener questions, we've got this one from the Mean Z, and says how the Dodge Viper is a superior to literally any other method of transportation. So this is what you get out of Viper guys.
I saw that go through on, I think it was on Instagram.
How about it's not? Next question.
Well, it is one of the only cars that you could literally take the engine out of it and put it into the truck that you needed to tow yourself home.